Welcome to One Rake at a Time. I'm your host, Art Jones, and on the show today, we're going to be reviewing some of what we've been doing all year, and we're going to be talking about where we're going in the future. And today, I have with me David Littlejohn.
Hello.
David Littlejohn is one of our best volunteers. He comes out and he's done a lot of raking with us. And David, you actually grew up in Crystal River, didn't you?
I sure did. My grandmother moved up here in 1970 and had an opportunity to come up here since then. I was born and raised in Pinellas County, and when I finally had an opportunity to retire, I knew exactly where I was going to go. I was going to go to Crystal River.
And you remember when the Crystal River was truly Crystal River and Kings Bay was the king of springs, don't you?
I sure did. My grandfather was born and raised here, and he used to do some commercial guiding and fishing in the river back in the 60s. So he knew all the good spots, and I always looked forward to coming up, going out with him. So I knew what the river was like. I knew what Kings Bay was like, what Three Sisters was like, and
yeah, I remember,
changed.
and I remember I was walking my dogs down the street one day and started telling you about Lingbia, and you're like, what's Lingbia?
I had no idea. I just knew it was the nasty stuff that was in the creek back behind my grandmother's house.
That's right. And for those in our audience that are watching for the first time and don't know what Lingbia is, I brought my little famous bucket of weeds to show everybody. And Lingbia, let me get some of there, is this horrible filamentous algae. And it's invaded Kings Bay. And what Lingbia does is it destroys the natural fish habitat. It destroys manatee habitat. It destroys human habitat. So there's Lingbia, and then here's some Lingbia mixed with Chaetomorpha. And you can see how it gets the water all cloudy and stuff. So it destroys water clarity. What should be in Kings Bay are beautiful plants like this. This is our southern naiad, and I brought a little sample of the hydrilla in here that the fish love to eat and stuff, and some native coontail in there. And that's really what should be in the bay. So this horrible Lingbia, this is what we're fighting, and that's why this show is called One Rake at a Time, because Lingbia hoards nutrients. So the more polluted the water, the more algae we're going to have. So Lingbia is a sign of the water getting polluted. And as we rake the Lingbia out of the water, we're removing that pollution with it. So that's why we started our project called One Rake at a Time. It's a community service project sponsored by the Kings Bay Rotary, because we live on the water here and we want to see it cleaned up. And if you think about it, even if we stopped all the pollution coming into the bay tomorrow, we would still have to clean up the mess that's here right now. Sort of the mess that we inherited from our parents. A lot of them didn't realize what was going to be happening when, you know, they're fertilizing their lawn and everyone's got a green lawn and you got this whole culture happening, and they didn't realize that, oops, eventually it's going to be destroying the springs. Well, now we know what's happening. So we're out there one rake at a time cleaning it up, and it's kind of exciting because one rake at a time times, 6 people, then 20 people, then 30 people, we're really starting to change things. And for those who want more information on the subject also, they can go to City Hall, and we have a beautiful brochure at City Hall. It's called Save Kings Bay, and you can pick it up there, and it has all our contact information in here, and it tells all about the program. And we do cleanups. The next big cleanup is going to be January 26th. That's a Saturday. We have 40 college students coming down from Darton College in Georgia. They were here last year with their teachers, and the teachers, they called me on the phone, they're like, Art, that was one of the most terrific experiences our kids ever had. And you can see on the screen there's some of our local kids also that helped out one time. And you can see it's just a lot of handwork, but that water is getting cleaner now because that horrible Lingbia is now out of it. And so every little bit we take out helps. And with one rake at a time now, we've added one machine at a time. So we're actually now taking out the Lingbia faster than the pollution is coming into the bay. So we've kind of turned the corner there.
It's outstanding.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And we've gotten a lot of great publicity on the project. Here's a copy of the Chronicle. Those who haven't seen it yet, the Chronicle's been absolutely wonderful, and they named me, the mayor of the city of Crystal River gave me the
Citizen of the Year.
Citizen of the Year award for our work with One Rake at a Time. And I was deeply honored and humbled by that. And I want to thank all of my volunteers out there that couldn't do it without you. It's really a community effort. And that's one of the really wonderful things that is happening here, because as we're cleaning up our mess, what's happening?
I'm getting to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
I've asked a lot of people, are you a member of Rotary? No. Find out how long they've been coming up to Crystal River. And that's the one thing that's common. Everybody wants to work hard. We're willing to make an effort to try to bring back, what Crystal River was like.
Right, and so the word is getting out there. The more we clean it up, and the more we're out there, we're bonding, we're saying, wait a minute, as we're cleaning this up, what can we do to prevent this in the future? And that's where the real power, I think, comes from. As we clean up our mess, that's where we get the strength and the power to look into the future and say, now how can we modify our behavior to prevent this?
A lot of the viewers may not be able to come out and help us out by doing the raking.
Right.
May not be physically able to, but there are some things they can do, especially around their house, that can kind of help with this project, as Art alluded to keep some of these pollutants and the nutrients out of the water and out of the springs, which will definitely help the reproduction of the Lyngby out there.
Right, because where's the pollution coming from?
It's coming out through the groundwater. It's coming after percolating down. It's coming from everybody's yards.
Right, it's coming from fertilizer,
It's from the fertilizers.
And leaky septic systems.
Septics, absolutely.
Golf courses. It's coming from, some of it's coming from agricultural land.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at all the different sources of pollution that are adding to the concentration of pollutants in the aquifer, you have to say, well, which ones can we prevent and which ones can we not prevent?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now agriculture, they can use best practices and they can certainly improve it, but those people really do need some fertilizer on those crops, and they need nice, clean, fresh water to irrigate with, because that's the food we eat. But do golf courses need the entire fairway green? Or could they get away with just having the putting green clean?
It's going to involve a lot
Do they
of
really
people.
need that much water? Is that essential to our survival compared to the damage that it's doing to the aquifer? Well, maybe not. Maybe now we have to sort of weigh those things out there. The green lawn that our parents had, is that really necessary, or do we want fresh water to drink?
I think sometimes what happens is, a lot of times we have the mentality out of sight, out of mind. You put the fertilizer out, you can't see it, you water everything in, and it just percolates right down. And
right,
next thing you know, there it is.
It's like your neighbor's doing it, and you get into kind of a competition, who's got the greener lawn, or you're in a housing development that likes you to have green lawns. And we're going to be talking more about that when One Rake at a Time returns. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back, and we've got some more stuff in the newspaper to share with you. Welcome back to One Rake at a Time. I'm your host, Art Jones, with the Kings Bay Rotary, and with me today is David Littlejohn, also with the Kings Bay Rotary and one of our best volunteers. And as we were just talking about the cleaning up of Lyngby of the Bay, I haven't shown the audience on this show yet one of our latest contraptions. Can you pull that up for me there, David? Thank you. Now let's see what this is. It's not a bazooka. What is it? Well, this is a diver vacuum. And see, it goes down like this, and the water comes down this way. So you say let's just say you hooked a garden hose up and you're squirting it out. So the water's coming down that way, and then it's shooting back up, and it's creating that vacuum. So you can use water, or you can use air, or you can use a combination of water and air in there. And what this does is it creates this vacuum, and then you can see it just shoots right up through that hole there, and it's coming out the top that way. And the beautiful thing about this is, as you're vacuuming up in the water, you're bringing everything up entirely whole. So if you were to catch a little crab or a little fish or something like that, we have volunteers at the surface that are going to save that. This is the same type of a diver vacuum that the treasure hunters use. Because as you're searching around for gold at the bottom and jewelry and bracelets, you're not going to want to smash those up. So it's a wonderful way to vacuum the bottom of the bay. And we're planning on using this method in the third year of the project coming up. So that's going to add some extra power to what we're doing with the raking.
As a diver, I'm looking forward to it, but I don't think my wife's going to ever believe that I would vacuum underwater when I won't vacuum the house.
Well, seeing is believing, so we'll get Ann out there to see it all,
Yeah,
won't we?
but we'll have to take
Yeah.
some photos. So
Yeah.
she may not believe it otherwise.
Yeah. So we're going to get that, and it's very exciting because the first year of the project, we took out 105 tons of Lyngbya. Most of that was by hand. The second year of the project, and our project began in September 2011. So when I say the second year, I mean beginning in 2012, September. So September, October, November, December, we're just barely 4 months into it. And we've already pulled out another 323 tons in the second year. So we're accelerating the cleanup of the Lyngbya. And as we clean the water, here's another little article that was in the Chronicle. And my viewers I'll just read it a little bit. It's Riverwalk will spur tourism. And they're talking about putting the Riverwalk down by Crackers and Charlie's, so when people come into town, they can walk along the Riverwalk. And I love it because in here, the person that wrote it says that projects such as the completion of Three Sisters Park and cleaning up of the bay by Art Jones and his One Rake at a Time program, that's what's going to draw people there, because when you have a clean Riverwalk, it's going to be absolutely beautiful for people to see. So that's going to bring tourists in there. And there you can see on our screen, that was a cleanup we were doing out at Three Sister Springs.
I was just up in the springs about 2 weeks ago, swimming with some manatees, and there is a big difference.
Yeah.
It very nice, looks very nice up there.
Yep.
You can definitely see the effort and
Yeah,
Good
look
job,
at all
Lyngbya.
that Lyngbya piled up on there. And that's in our springs. So that is just, remember, algae hoards nutrients, so that's all just pollution coming out of the water. And you can see algae is, oh, look at how beautiful that spring is. Algae is something that manatees can't eat. It destroys fish habitat because it robs oxygen out of the water. And look at how beautiful it is there, that crystal clear blue water coming back. And you can see it's just a lot of manual work, and everybody pitches in together to work. It is just an amazing project.
well, that's one thing when we first started helping you out. There'd be a handful of people working, and it's just grown exponentially.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you're even having to turn people down. You run out of rakes, but everybody's still there willing to pitch in. They're grabbing bins and taking it up there and dumping it. So
Yeah.
even if they don't have a rake, there's still things for people
Yeah.
to do.
Oh yeah.
It's
I always.
great.
Yep. Sometimes and people can come out and just give onshore support to the people that are raking.
Absolutely.
We had some people come out one time after a cleanup and provide lunch for everybody.
Wow.
They're like, wow, we're just going to come out and it was just simple, hot dogs and hamburgers. It was when we were doing the school kids from the Academy
But
of
it's
Environmental
appreciated.
Sciences.
It's very much
And they just
appreciated.
wanted to say thank you. And here's another newspaper that it's called Inside Citrus, and that's me out on the barge raking the Lyngbya. And it's another great story. So here we are on the front page of a local paper. And one of the things that I'm really proud of here is that Citrus County and what we're doing here in Kings Bay, we're really leading the charge across the entire state of Florida, because really this problem is statewide. There's algae down in the Homosassa River, there's algae over in Silver Springs, there's algae on the East Coast. There is, the aquifer is polluted statewide. So it really is a statewide program. But we here, we're addressing that problem. We're going like, okay, let's just start cleaning up the mess that we find here today. And as we clean up the mess, that's where we're going to find the power to change the behavior in the future. Because if you don't clean up your mess, then it's really easy to say, well, it doesn't matter, they should do this or
Somebody
they
should do that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I applaud you for starting up, leading by example.
Right, because
Lead
we
by
can do it.
Yeah, the photo Art just showed, that's not some other people out there. That's Art actually out there doing the work which he does on
Right.
every one of these cleanups.
Yeah. When I grew up, my grandparents instilled in me, the whole idea is don't ask other people to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. And that really did stick with me. And with joining Rotary, it was just such a gift, because now I found a lot of comrades. When the first cleanups I did with Citrus, Leadership Citrus, I graduated in class of '09, and we did a little cleanup project there at Hunter Springs Park. And I invited a lot of people in the community, and some of the people that showed up were Rotarians. And that's when I learned about Rotary. I'm like, where are you people from? They're like, we're from the Kings Bay Rotary. Why don't you come to lunch sometime and see what we're all about? And when I went to lunch and they started talking about the four-way test of the things they think, say, and do, and what is the truth, what will be beneficial to all concerned, what will build goodwill and better friendships, and what is fair to all concerned. Well, it's certainly fair that we leave this place better than we found it, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And we're certainly building a lot of goodwill and better friendships as we're cleaning up, aren't we?
Absolutely. It's amazing the diverse people throughout the community that realize the importance of what we're doing.
Right.
And they're willing to pitch in. They're not expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
They're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, and it's the right thing to do.
And that's the truth, isn't it?
Absolutely.
The truth is that Lyngbya doesn't belong in the water at all, does it?
And it's not going to go away. You can sit there on shore and stare at it. It's not going to go away.
They aren't going to get rid of it for us. But we can get rid of it.
Absolutely.
We can get rid of it and get there. And it is fair to all concerned that we're stepping up to the plate and we're providing leadership for the children to see what we're doing and leave the place better than we found it for them. So stay tuned. We'll be right back in a few minutes, and we're going to talk about the next program that we're adding to go statewide with One Rake at a Time. Welcome back to One Rake at a Time. I'm your host, Art Jones. Thank you for joining us today. Once again, I'm here with my fellow Rotarian, David Littlejohn. And we're talking about our One Rake at a Time Lyngbya cleanup that we're doing here in Kings Bay. And we're talking about where we're the community in Florida where we're putting our money where our mouth is. We're the ones that are actually doing something about the problem, not expecting someone else to do it. Because we can do it together. If we're waiting for them to do it, it may never get done. So one of the things that I brought today, also that we haven't gotten to yet, is a kind of a regional paper. This is the old St. Pete Times.
Yes, it is.
It's now called the Tampa Bay Times, and the huge front page. This is the Sunday paper, which is a huge circulation. I think hundreds of thousands, and they've got trouble bubbling. And you go into the paper, and it's a 4-page paper on it. You get into the depths of it, and it is just absolutely amazing what they did. And one of the things that they're pointing out in this is that what's happening to Kings Bay, what's happening here in Citrus County, is happening all over the state of Florida. There are springs that have dried up. One of the articles was on, what was it, Silver Springs?
White Springs.
White Springs that dried up, Ginny Springs, Silver Glen Springs. And in the map, it showed all of the aquifers and what's going on. And the very fascinating thing is Florida is such a unique place because Florida is a peninsula that juts out into the water. We have the Atlantic Ocean on one side, we have the Gulf of Mexico on the other side, and we've got the Florida Straits or Caribbeans to the south. And so Florida as a peninsula is jutting out over this huge saltwater ocean of water. And Florida has a beautiful freshwater aquifer that creates all these beautiful springs. But that aquifer, and it showed in that picture there, sits on top of salt water. So as we put more and more straws down into the aquifer and are taking out that fresh water, a lot of that fresh water gets lost through evaporation with overhead sprinklers. Because when you're sprinkling your lawn in the middle of the day, 50% or even more, sometimes 90% of that water never even makes it to the soil. It's just lost in evaporation, and the winds come along and it's gone. We've lost it out of our aquifer. So that's happening all over Florida, and what's happening as the aquifer gets thinner, the fresh water, it's allowing the salt water to come up. Oh my God, and what will happen to salt water when it comes up into your well?
You can ask the people who live up in Cedar Key right now.
Yeah.
They're having to truck in all their water, bottled water, everything.
Yeah.
They used to have wells just like we do, and the saltwater intrusion's a reality for them.
Right, and salt water will poison a well.
Absolutely.
Because once you get salt water into a well, can you just pour some fresh water in there and flush it out?
It's gone.
It contaminates
It's gone.
doesn't it?
It's too many straws going in that glass of water.
Yeah, and so that is something that scares me. And we don't want to wait till the last minute. We don't want to wait until we've got salt water in our wells to say, oh, we need to do something about it. Let's do a little bit of preventative maintenance, right?
You've got to. You just got to try to conserve water where you can.
Yeah.
Be realistic about the stuff. Again, I can tell you anecdotally, without having to look at the papers, a spring that's near my grandmother's house, several of the springs that I enjoyed for the last 20 years, there's no flow coming through there. The King Spring, or main spring in Kings Bay, that's where I did my open water diving in 1988.
Yeah.
You could go down and you could see. The visibility is not there. The flow is not there anymore. You see all these springs that have such a reduced flow and or are drying up. Weeki Wachee, perfect example. You had cave divers that were never able to dive down into the spring to explore it because there was always such a heavy water flow.
Right.
A couple of years ago, the water flow was reduced so much, they were able to actually go in and start exploring it.
Right.
Well, that's an indication that glass of water is starting to go dry if they're able to do that.
Exactly, exactly. So the warning signs are there, and the springs are really an indicator of the health of our drinking water supply, because this is our drinking water. Do we want to really use drinking water to irrigate our lawns?
Absolutely not.
Do we want to use drinking water to come out of our faucets and drink?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the number one thing. Do we want to have fresh, clean water to irrigate our farmland?
You can maybe do some reclaimed and
Some
there's
reclaimed,
other
but
choices.
you're
You've got some
certainly not
choices.
going to want to use salt water, are you?
Your salt water, there's not going to be farmland
Yeah.
anymore.
And so
it'll
people-
die.
Yeah. And what happens if you use salt water on your lawn?
It's going to die.
Yeah, that's going to kill it too. So salt water is really the worst thing we can have happen, after the Lyngbya. The Lyngbya is a sign that the aquifer is under attack. It's heavy with pollutants now, and what's happening is we take more and more water, the pollution is getting more concentrated. Because remember, dilution is a solution to pollution. So the less water we have, the more concentrated those nitrates are, the more Lyngbya we get, the more polluted the water is. So if we can start rebuilding our aquifer where there's more and more fresh water in there, that's going to lessen the amount of nitrates in it. That's going to lessen the concentration. So now the water coming out of the springs has less concentrated nitrates. It's less polluted, and there's more water.
But that's not something just Kings Bay Rotary members can do.
No.
It's going to take everybody.
Exactly.
And Citrus County is going to take everybody in the state to recognize we're all interconnected.
Right, right.
It's all coming from the same kettle.
Yes, exactly. And here's the Tampa Bay Times. This is a week later, and we had them come up here and follow up on our story because we are the only people in Florida that are actively attacking the problem. And they say efforts to clean up the bay only a stopgap. Well, I say efforts to clean up our bay is only the beginning. That's what I say. It's not just a stopgap because we're not stopping. We're going to keep going. And so we're going to add we're going to roll out one rake at a time program to Rotary statewide in March. And what we're asking people is where you can, one rake at a time, remove the pollution. Where you can, 1 gallon at a time, you save water. So don't use overhead sprayers where it's just evaporating out into the atmosphere and picking up nitrates as go in. So use less fertilizer. So, and 1 person at a time, times 16 million people in Florida. Wow. So 1 rake at a time, 1 gallon at a time, 1 person at a time. That's going to be our message. Together, we'll get it done. We're not going to wait for government to say, oh, you need to do this or pass a law and force people to do it. We're asking people to please join us in making sure that we leave Florida behind better than we found it. We leave it for the next generation. Join us together in protecting our drinking water supply here in Florida. Because think what would happen to real estate values in Florida if you get salt water in your well. If you think the prices are down right now, think so what will happen then.
And it can happen.
And right now the trend is heading that way. So that's why, a little preventative maintenance, little preventive medicine is worth a pound a cure in the future. So let's address the problems now before we lose it. So thanks again for joining us at One Rake at a Time, and stay tuned and watch us next month where we're going to be filming on location out at the next cleanup, January 26th at Hunter Springs Park from 1 o'clock in the afternoon till 4 in the afternoon. So join us then, and we'll see you next month. Thanks again.